Hi everyone, I'm Mary from Joyful and Mary Quilting, and today I am excited to share one of my favorite quilting tools with you, the rotary cutter. Now as quilters, we know how important it is to have a reliable rotary cutter, especially when we're cutting multiple layers of fabric or we're getting into those precise details when it comes to our cutting. But here's the thing, no two rotary cutters are the same. And today I'll be walking you through 5 of my favorites. I'll be discussing the pros and the cons of each. I'll let you know that each one brings something unique to the table. So by the end of this video, you'll have a better idea of which one might work best for you and for your needs. First of all, before we look at my 5 cutters, I have a pro and a con that is applicable to any rotary cutter. The pro is a sharp rotary cutting blade allows for clean, precise cuts with minimal effort. We all know that. This reduces hand and wrist fatigue, and you don't have to apply excessive pressure, making the cutting process faster and really more efficient. Sharp blades will also prevent fabric from fraying or from getting pulled, ensuring crisp, professional results on your quilt pieces. But here's the con. The sharper the blade, the greater the risk of injury. Rotary cutting blades are razor sharp, which means even a slight mishandling can lead to serious cuts. This means safety features such as blade guards, retractable blades, and proper storage are crucial. It's important to always retract or cover the blade when it's not in use. And we have to be mindful that we need to change our blades to prevent accidents. A dull blade can cause a problem. So, in summary, while sharpness is the key for precision, prioritizing safety ensures you can keep quilting without any mishaps. Now that we've talked about safety, let's talk about these rotary cutters. So here are the 5 cutters that I love that we are going to talk about. Now I know there's a lot of other cutters out there. I'm sure you have your favorites. And if you do, please let me know in the comments what your favorite is and why, or if you have any issues with these and maybe we can address those. So I have the 5 cutters are, first of all, my Quilters Select cutter, my Martelli Notions cutter, my Olfa 45mm cutter, my Missouri Star Quilt Company 45mm cutter, and my Olfa Ergonomic cutter. They're all 45mm. So let's talk about, we're going to start with this one. I'm just going to give you the pros and cons, show you how you use them, and tell you what I like about them and why they're a favorite. So I'm starting with this Quilters Select 45mm cutter. This is one of my absolute favorites, and here's why. First of all, it is a lot heavier than most rotary cutters, which might sound like a con, but actually that weight helps to reduce the amount of pressure that you need to apply while you're cutting. The grip is really comfortable, and the blade opens with a simple push of this button. So I'm going to show you how you use the cutter. Put my ruler down here. I'm just going to make a cut so that you can see how it's used. But you're going to push the button, and once you do that, once the cutter hits the fabric, you let go and cut. It cuts nicely. And then the way you retract the blade is you just do that. It's so easy. It's so fun. Now I'm going to just cut another piece. I want to make sure that my hand is positioned correctly. I don't need to put my finger here. A lot of times in some of the cutters there's a little slot here, kind of a ridged slot where you put your finger. I didn't find I needed to do that. I just touch the button. That releases the blade. Make sure that once you get here, you touch the blade to your cutting mat. That's what keeps it engaged. Then you do this and you do that and it's back. Really great product. Also, it helps you to work quickly. I mean, you just, as you get going faster, cut, tap, and your thumb just knows to automatically tap that button right there. It really is easy on your hand. No need to manually slide it open and closed. Now, the pros of this, first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about changing blades. This one is super easy to change the blade. It has a magnet in here, which keeps everything together so you don't have all the pieces falling apart. But it has this little slide that you just pull back and then the blade drops off. You're able to replace the blade, put the pieces back together again, reposition the slide, and you're done. Very simple, very easy to change the blade. Again, another pro, the weight helps for you to have less pressure on your hand. So it's comfortable. It can also be used by both right and left-handed quilters. You can adjust it easily, and the instructions tell you how. It uses any brand of blade, so you're not locked into buying specific ones. Okay, so here's the cons. It is on the pricier side. It costs about $55 for one cutter. And this weight can take a little getting used to. When I first tried it out, I was a little confused. I am used to putting my finger here and really pushing down and cutting. And just the fact that I don't have to push so hard and I let the cutter do the work for me, again, took a little getting used to, but not much. Once I did, I really loved it. I especially like tapping the side of the blade to close it, because I am always leaving my blades open by accident, and this is a great safety feature. So overall, once you adjust to the feel, it really is a game changer, and it is a great cutter. The next cutter is the Martelli Notions 45mm right-handed cutter. I'm right-handed, so I bought the right-handed cutter. They are not ambidextrous. You have to buy a left-handed or a right-handed depending on what you need. Now, this is an odd-looking cutter, and when I first tried it, I really struggled with trying to get my cut straight. What happened was I wasn't holding it properly, first of all. I didn't have my thumb positioned in the right spot, and that's what was causing me all the problem. So let's take a look at what you do. This is, first of all, an ergonomically friendly cutter. If you have any kind of wrist or tendon issues or anything in your hand, this is the cutter that will keep your hand straight and keep your cut straight without all that pressure that we get a lot of times with our cutters when we turn our hands back and forth. So positioning, there's a little thumb spot right here, and I'm going to put my thumb right in that spot, and I'm going to put, there's a ridge here, and I'm going to put my finger here. This is how I control it. I have total control over this cutter with my finger here and my thumb here. If I were to hold it this way, which is what I was doing, that's why I didn't have the control I needed. So the thing that's a little cumbersome about this is the way they release the blade. You have to take this red lever and you pull it back, that's the protection, and the blade is then exposed. So it's not like touching a button or moving a little slide back and forth. You really have to do this maneuver here where you open up that blade, pushing the cover back. So let's give it a cut. I'm going to position my ruler right here. And I want to make sure, of course, that my blade is lined up right next to my ruler. And I want this to be in front of me. I don't want to be off to the side, either side. I want it to be directly in front so that I can make a nice straight cut. So here we go. I've got it next to the ruler and I can feel it. I'm straight up and down, perpendicular. Now, Martelli says that if you turn your cutter sideways this way or that way, you can not only damage your blade, but you can damage your cutting mat, and you can get ridges even in a self-healing mat. So with this particular cutter, I'm not sure about other cutters, but with this one, you want, again, to make sure that you have a nice straight angle when you are making those cuts. Now, one thing that I did notice with the Martelli cutter is that they make it very easy for you to control where that cutting is. So if you are doing any kind of cutting, look at how simple and easy that is, especially if you're cutting around a curve. You can control the cutter because of the position of your finger. So I think that is a real pro. Martelli does have a cutting system that maximizes all of the positive qualities of their cutter, their mats, and their rulers, and you may want to check that out. But here I am just using their cutter with my mat and my ruler, and I'm really happy with the results. Now, the cons. The blade changing process for the Martelli cutter can actually be a little tricky. And that's something that I struggled with a little bit. There's a screw that comes out, the screw turns clockwise to remove it rather than counterclockwise, which is what you would expect with any screw. So that's kind of an issue. It feels backwards. Plus, there are a couple of parts that you need to handle when you're changing the blades, and there's a little spring in there that you have to be careful of. Supposedly, the Martelli cutter prevents you from having to change your blade often when you use their system. So they say that actually you don't have to change the blade as often, but when you do, I think it's a bit of a con when it comes to having to remove all those pieces, make sure you do it in the right order, and then put it all back together again. Now, another thing is that you cannot use other blades with the Martelli cutter. You need a Martelli blade. there's a hole in the center, and most cutters have a notched hole, and that's where you screw everything back in. Martelli's center is just a round hole, and if you use a blade with a notched hole, you can ruin this screw and have to replace it. So you want to buy their blades. But the blades are comparable in price to any other good quality rotary blade, so I don't think that's a huge issue. You do have to purchase a different cutter if you're right-handed or left-handed, as I said, and it does take a bit of practice. But once you get used to it, this cutter is a favorite for quilters, and it really can be helpful for those that have hand and wrist issues. This is the Olfa 45mm rotary cutter. This is a classic. If you're just starting out, it's a great affordable option. It runs about $12. It's super inexpensive. It comes in all different colors and patterns on the handle. It's really lightweight. It uses any 45mm blade, and changing the blade is really simple. You just, like with the Quilters Select, you pull that back, the blade drops out, you just replace it, replace all the pieces, put it back together again. It just takes a second. It also works for both right-handed and left-handed. The pros then: lightweight, inexpensive, variety of colors, easy blade changes, compatible with most 45mm blades, and you can use right and left-handed. So the cons of this cutter is, first of all, because it's lightweight, you need to apply more pressure when you're cutting, which really can be hard on your hand and on your wrist during long cutting sessions. Especially, we put our finger here where this is ridged, and you can see that as I'm pushing, that's giving me a lot of pressure here. That, you know, if it's a short cutting session, it's not a big deal. But if you're cutting for a long time, then you can have some issues if you're not careful. Still, for the price and the ease of use, it's a good solid cutter. This is a relatively new cutter, new to me anyway. It's the Missouri Star Quilt Company cutter, and it was actually invented for ease in cutting. It's a little heavier. It's not as heavy as the Quilters Select, but it is a little heavier than the Olfa, and I can feel that. So that means we do have a little bit of that weight that's going to help us with cutting. Now, it's priced reasonably, about $21, and there is a little less pressure on your hand. You're still going to cut the same way with your finger and with your cutter this direction, so you can still have a little bit of those issues when it comes to hand and wrist. But it can be adjusted to right and left-handed quilters, which is really convenient. So it has a really good grip. It's a medium weight. Let's cut some fabric. I'm going to place my ruler here. You open the blade simply just by pulling the lever back, and I'm going to cut. Easily cuts, very smooth, very simple. Now, I have used this cutter quite a bit, this blade, and it's still cutting really well. So I'm still feeling that pressure from the cutter that's helping me make that smooth cut without having to push down a lot. It also works for both right and left-handed users. But there are some cons. One of the things that I noticed when I was doing research on the reviews on this product was many, not just a few, a lot of people said that the more that they cut with it, the looser the blade became. So I tested it out, and I found that I had made 60 cuts, and once I had made 60 cuts, which isn't a lot when you're cutting fabric for a project, the blade came loose. These loosened up and the blade started to wobble, which was, dangerous for one thing, and was giving me a poor cut. So we tried to play with it and see, and my husband worked on it and figured out that the reason that it was coming undone was because when you first buy this cutter, it has a piece of plastic on the blade. So I took the cutter apart, I removed the plastic, I put it back together again. What I didn't do was I didn't tighten it as tight as it needed to go. The way this is tightened is you actually push one knob this way and one towards me. So I'm actually tightening it really tight, and I did not tighten it enough. Once we tightened it up by pushing them in two directions, never had that problem again. And when we're ready to remove the blade, we just turn it in the opposite direction. So I think that was the issue, and I think that's what a lot of quilters had a problem with, was they did not tighten this up. Now here's the issue that I have. When somebody reviews a product and their bad review is based on user error, I struggle with that. I feel like this product was probably tested quite a bit, and it probably didn't leave the factory before they knew that it was making a good cut. So there had to have been an issue, a user issue with me, in order to have that loosen up. And I think that's what it was. Again, once we were able to tighten that very tightly. There was no room for tightening it anymore. This is a great cutter if you want a more durable cutter, but you don't want to break the bank. Reasonably priced and works well. Lastly, we have this cutter. This has been around a long time. This is the Olfa 45mm Ergonomic Rotary Cutter. So this one also is to ease the pressure on your hand and wrist when you're using it. You can still position your finger here, or you can hold it this way. The way that it works is this red button, you push the button and then the blade comes out when you squeeze the handle, and when you let go, the blade goes back. Then that red button serves as a lock, so when I have it pushed, I can't push the blade out until I release it, and then the blade comes out. Now, the grip is designed to be comfortable. The price is great. It's only about $18. One of the standout features, again, is that it works for right and left-handed people. You just switch the blade to the opposite side. It's kind of like the regular Olfa. You do the same thing, and that's always a plus. So I found that the pros is, first of all, the blade only comes out when you squeeze it and you are cutting. It retracts when you let go, which is super safe. It has a very comfortable grip and it's affordable. It works for both right-handed and left-handed people. Here's the con. The issue is, first of all, it has a lot of pieces here that you have to take apart. You unscrew this, there's a washer in there, there's a disc there, and unless you take it apart and put it back together again exactly the way it came, you're going to have issues with the cutting. And one of the tips that I read, if you have one of these cutters, is inside of the cutter there's just this little washer that's positioned, and you're supposed to make sure that the washer is in so it looks like a cowboy hat. The brim goes like this before you put it back together again. If you do that and then you screw it back closed, it actually works really well. So I always wondered, what way does that washer go? Well, that's how it goes. Now, another con is that, as I said, you push the button and you release the blade. Do this, push the button, and it locks it. But if you leave it open and push the blade, you've got that blade locked in the open position, and that can be really dangerous if you do it and you don't really think about it, if you're not paying attention. So for the price and for those extra safety features, this one is a great option if you want an ergonomic cutter and you want to keep safety in mind. There are my 5 cutters: Quilters Select, Martelli Notions, Olfa Inexpensive, Missouri Star Quilt Company, and my Olfa Ergonomic cutter. Again, I use all of these cutters for different reasons and different projects, and I feel like each one of them has a lot of positive qualities. You know, there's always going to be a few cons with everything that we use, but the pros definitely for me outweighed the cons, and I love these products. Every one of them, I would recommend each one. And there you have it, my top 5 rotary cutters, each with their own pros and cons. So whether you're looking for something lightweight and affordable or ergonomically designed to save your wrist, there's definitely a cutter out there for you. And it's always great when a cutter works for both right-handed and left-handed quilters. There are more options out there nowadays for everyone. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment below if you have a favorite rotary cutter that I didn't mention, or if you have any questions about the ones that I shared today. So until next time, I am always trying to be joyful, but I will always be merry. Thanks so much for watching.